Energy in the 21st Century provides a fact-based analysis of the most prominent energy issues of our time. In parts 1 and 2 of this series, we discussed climate change over centuries and climate change over the ages. In this video, we consider the climate change debate. This is part 3 of a 3-part series. Advocates of anthropogenic climate change want society to immediately transition to a low-carbon economy. They point out that sea level could be higher than the 1990 level by 7 to 23 inches by 2100 if greenhouse gas emissions continue to be added to the environment. We can put sea level rise in perspective by noting that storm surge from a hurricane can be 20 feet higher than sea level. In the case of storm surge, however, flooding usually recedes within days. Sea level rise, on the other hand, will require adaptation to the long-term change in sea level. The cost to convert every nation from a carbon-based economy to a low-carbon economy is enormous. Is an immediate transition necessary, or do we have some time? The mainstream view of climate is provided by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or UNIPCC. A second independent group called the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change, or NIPCC, has formed to independently evaluate the impact of increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide on the Earth's biosphere. Both groups include scientists and engineers with good credentials in science and technology. A comparison of the findings of both groups show that the groups agree that climate is changing, but they disagree about the cause. The table shows a few differences. Both groups agree that climate is changing, but they do not agree how much of the change is due to human activity and how much is due to natural causes. A meeting of almost 200 nations was held in Paris from November 30th to December 11th in 2015. The purpose of the meeting was to seek an international agreement to reduce the impact of human activity on the climate. It was convened as COP21, the 21st United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties. The COP21 agreement was adopted by 195 countries on December 12, 2015, and is expected to enter into force in 2020. The agreement is, quote, a global action plan to put the world on track to avoid dangerous climate change by limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, unquote. Developed countries intend to mobilize $100 billion per year until 2025, when a new collective goal will be set. On December 9, 2015, United States Secretary of State John Kerry pointed out the importance of global cooperation while attending the COP21 meeting. Quote, the fact is that even if every American citizen biked to work, carpooled to school, used only solar panels to power their homes, if we each planted a dozen trees, if we somehow eliminated all of our domestic greenhouse gas emissions, guess what? That still wouldn't be enough to offset the carbon pollution coming from the rest of the world. If all the industrial nations went down to zero emissions, remember what I just said, all the industrial emissions went down to zero emissions, it wouldn't be enough, not when more than 65% of the world's carbon pollution comes from the developing world, unquote. In The Vanishing Face of Gaia, author James Lovelock questioned the validity of climate forecasts and said the most important question in climate change is, quote, how much and how fast is the Earth heating, unquote. Lovelock concluded that, quote, until we know for certain how to cure global heating, our greatest efforts should go into adaptation, to preparing those parts of the Earth least likely to be affected by adverse climate change as the safe havens for a civilized humanity, unquote. The idea of adapting has also been championed by Stephen Koonin, former Undersecretary of Science in the United States Department of Energy during President Barack Obama's first term. In 2015, Koonin said that it would be wise to consider allocating resources that would allow us to adapt to climate change rather than immediately disrupting carbon-based economies in an attempt to control the climate. Koonin pointed out that adaptation is, quote, indifferent to whether the climate change is natural or human-induced, unquote. So is the debate truly settled? Evidently not. For more information on climate change, energy policy, and to learn more about energy in our modern lives, read Energy in the 21st Century, 4th edition, available now, or visit energy.fanchi.com. Please also check out our video discussing the Goldilocks policy for energy and transition and the 2% solution. Thank you for watching.